Hi, thank you very much, Georgie. I love to join you guys in the MOOC today. I am Alyssa Jade McDonald-Bärtl, and I am a third-generation farmer, originally from Papua New Guinea. And 12 years ago, I set up a social enterprise in Germany to be founding my company, BLYSS GmbH, where we farm cacao. We do cacao farmer education, and we also advise companies and policymakers in Europe and in developing countries on how they can evolve sustainability in regulation, investment, and business practices. As you just heard from my introduction, it sounds like I do a variety of things. I said chocolate company and farming and advising companies on sustainability and policy. Let me bring it together for you in one simple concept. Years ago, I read a book by Jim Collins. He's a writer. He wrote the book Great by Choice, and he's a writer where he's been studying, he's American, and he's been studying, for example, ways that stock-listed, big, proud, strong American companies have grown from innovation and scaled their innovation. Now, when I was reading Jim Collins' book, I thought, okay, he's talking about scaling innovation. As a social entrepreneur, I'm always interested in scaling impact. And what I loved is I took his approach to scaling innovation and thought about what it meant about scaling for impact. And he gave this really great analogy. He said, shoot bullets and then shoot a cannonball. And what he meant by that was come up with bullets, come up with lots of little ideas, some experiments, practices, build a business with lots of experiments, practices, and little bullets. And you practice shooting your little bullets on little targets. And once you find the one bullet for the one target that really makes sense, then you get out your cannonball and you fire the one big missile, like the one big hit that's going to make the impact. And while Mr. Collins meant it in the concept of innovation, I think it really applies to us in social enterprise and in scaling impact. I have 3 examples of how I have practiced shooting bullets and then got out my cannon gun and committed to the big cannonball. These are the 3 examples. Firstly, when I started my company, it was 2009, I set up my first farms in Ecuador, together with my father, who is a farmer from Papua New Guinea. And we set up farms and I started farming cacao and then making chocolate. Bean to bar chocolate as we know it now. It was still pretty innovative back in 2009 and certainly a big step for a small social enterprise startup. Now, when I was doing that, we were doing everything. We were farming the cacao organically and directly traded with our farmers. We brought it to market and I sold it here in Germany and especially around Europe in luxury locations, in luxury hotels paired with fancy whiskies, and it was going quite well. It was a luxury chocolate in the end, although we were doing it organic and fair trade in the back end. And so we were able to sell at a very high price and the company did well. And then I had to keep growing. So how do you grow? Well, typically in cacao and in commodities, if you want to grow your company, you take more land and you grow your farm size so you can farm more beans and sell more chocolate. But it wasn't inspiring to me because that's not what I thought a social enterprise in my generation does. It was certainly more the thinking of my father and grandfather who came from old-fashioned, let's say, commodity farming approaches where if you want to grow as a company, you grow your land size. What I realized during the time of working with farmers in cacao and seeing them grow was actually farming and farmer education was a more interesting place for me to spend my effort, attention, and care in this whole market than actually producing chocolate bars and selling them in Europe. This is my little bullets to big cannonball example number 1. I realized that there's not many participants in cacao farmer training. On one side, there's not much competition. On the other side, the impact I could achieve with cacao farmer training and helping farmers understand plant pathology, how to increase their yield, how to diversify their income, how to work on the land in a natural way that's good for them and their families, and how to take care of their health, well, well, that was achieving the impact I really wanted as a social entrepreneur. And it didn't involve having to sell things at a high price in Europe. It was more in line with what I wanted to do. And I could scale the impact I was looking for, as in helping farmers. And I didn't have to grow an old-fashioned way by growing land. This is my first example of how I went from shooting little bullets to identifying my cannonball. So today, what's my business? We're in the business of cacao farmer training. We train farmers all around the world in cacao farming for their own improved livelihoods, for their well-being in agroecology, to improve their productivity and yield per hectare, and also to take care of their health and be able to bring strong families into the future. That's my cannonball. Let me give you another example. Some years ago, I was reading a fantastic report from EUInterreg. You'll find all of these links below. And in the EUInterreg, the consortium of academia said, look, there's no one single actor that's ever going to make breakthrough in terms of a better food system, in terms of more equitable access to food, food security, cost of living. They said no one actor is going to achieve this. They also said we need science and evidence to make evidence-based decisions. Like, not activism, not idealism. We need evidence and science. And thirdly, they said we need to make policy to shape the way this industry and infrastructure is moving forward. And I thought about it. Okay, Lyss, you're a little social entrepreneur and you've got, your few farms here. We work with 2,000 farmers. Great. It's small scale. When I really saw no single actor is going to make breakthrough, it really hit me because I also understood I am but a small entrepreneur in my little kingdom, in my little field. But how am I going to scale that? That's another redefinition of little bullets. Where's my cannonball? How can I scale my impact from cacao farmer training? And these three advices from the EUInterreg really spoke to me. No single actor is going to do it. We need science and evidence, and we need to make policy. How was I running my business in the past? Well, I was using a lot of activism and idealism, I tell you. I was making videos and going to conferences and standing on stages and imploring my colleagues in the industry to use our little examples of how empowering farmers is improving their health, is improving their livelihood. And I was using our small scale to try to move a really big rock. But I was missing the leverage item. I was missing the thing that turned my bullets into the cannonball, the thing that grew that impact. That was science, evidence, and policy. We can't stand there as social entrepreneurs and just say how great our ideas is and give our small examples of 2,000 farmers and a few hundred hectares. How on earth will the world's largest players take that seriously and model it for their own ideas if we give these small examples with idealism and activism behind them? We have to commit ourselves to the proof of evidence and science to help us make our ideas validated, referenceable, and serious. So what did I do then? I undertook the commitment to actually study environmental science. I'm doing my PhD at the moment where I am proving or disproving our methodology of cacao farmer training for improved health, wealth, and yield productivity. Can I tell you what I've learned already along the way? I'm only halfway through. What took us a decade to work on to improve our processes of what we thought was really helping cacao farmers with from an education base to improving their health, wealth, and productivity. I can already see I've been halfway through this scientific investigation of these processes, validating the hypothesis to the data. We weren't actually that good. It wasn't that great. The ideas, the little bullets that we were shooting in our farmer training and our social enterprise were good ideas. They were great experiments. But what the big cannonball was committing these little ideas to getting them proven, to getting it fact-checked, to repeating it over and over and using science as the way to formulate evidence and thus inform policy. It was very humbling and humiliating, not humiliating, that's not the right word, humbling, to realize that even after a decade of practicing these methodologies, working on them, that when I put them under a microscope, they still weren't perfect enough. We in social enterprise, we in systems change need to be very willing to put our ideas up as humble bullets. And when we shoot those cannonballs, we need to make sure that they are solid. Otherwise, we are sometimes reinforcing ongoing myths that aren't exactly true. So my example was going from small social enterprise work to committing to science, evidence, data, and putting it all on the line. Yeah, it meant coming up with the thought of, gee, this intellectual property that we have been using as our benefit or as our USP is no longer going to be our intellectual property anymore because we put it up to be proven, to be validated. There's something in that. Scaling impact, being great by choice, deciding not the little bullets, the little BB guns anymore, but deciding to commit our big cannonballs has a lot to do with liberating our methods. There's something there. As a small social enterprise, when I saw the coronavirus was happening, we immediately took action to inform our cacao farmers. So our cacao farmers is typically between 10 to 15 degrees above and below the equator, often very, very poor rural and remote locations. Cacao farmers are still typically small farm holders working with their families. They are not often high on the social priority in the countries that they are working in. We work in Papua New Guinea, Philippines. They typically are not able to access government support, healthcare, or any sort of benefits typically from their mainlands. So we already know that they're a very vulnerable population generally. They're food insecure. They have high degrees of pain and respiratory illness already due to malaria and tuberculosis. So when I saw COVID coming, it was time to act because we knew that as a social enterprise, there is not going to be the support from the governments there. So little bullets, start thinking up ideas. What can we do for our farmers in advance? Well, we have sunk costs already on farms. We have training huts. As I mentioned, we do cacao farmer training. So we have infrastructure of little huts and houses and rooms where we do cacao farmer training. We have infrastructure like cars and materials and vans. Well, all of those can become makeshift healthcare facilities. They can become mobile hygiene stations. Sort of taking the ideology of what the social economy has taught us and leveraging sunk costs to seeing how they can be a positive contribution in another way. So cacao farmers are typically rural, remote, and have very little resources. Very easy for us to turn around standard business operation materials and equipment into healthcare support. That seemed pretty obvious to me as a small social enterprise, yet in the early weeks of Corona, I was realizing after discussing with my colleagues in large chocolate companies and commodity traders that in fact they were not thinking at all of anything to do for the farmers. In fact, they were mostly worried about their North American or European-based employees, not actually at the start of their supply chain. And so talking about going from small bullets to the big cannibal, I put together a concept note and identified the evidence and data around what is the vulnerable conditions of farmers, what is their current respiratory illness, what is their access to resources, and I mapped the need and I compared it to the infrastructure and sunk cost of investments that we already have in cacao farming and chocolate manufacture. Hey, guys, we're sitting on places that can be makeshift hygiene stations and makeshift medical centers. And what about every time a farmer brings beans in, we give them a small medical check? Such small steps that we could do that could make a positive, direct, and massive impact into the healthcare delivery of the countries that we are working in. Response was amazing. Within days, I was receiving pictures of children with their hands covered in soap from bean pickup trucks that would typically only be working for cacao. I love it. It's so simple. These three examples, just wanted to share the idea about scaling impact, I challenge you to always be asking yourself, what of these little bullets am I firing? Which one could really make the big impact? And I challenge you to identify that and then lay all your bets on the line. And then after you've done that for some years, please question yourself again. Every time we reinvent, we have the opportunity to turn those bullets into the big cannonballs. And who knows, you might find yourself a third-generation farmer from the South Pacific and often sitting in Berlin and Brussels and advising legislation processes, advising the world's largest chocolate companies on business processes, and having the absolute luck and fortune to share ideas in a massive open online courses like with you. So I look forward to hearing from Georgie and the team about what you come up with. Thank you for contributing your ideas, innovation, and heart to systemic change. We need it. Think about your bullets. Which of those can be the cannonball? I dare you to scale your impact.